mean, do you put him? I mean, is he the best all-time running back in college?
I mean, I think just like anything, it's tough with the errors and stuff like that. But it depends what you base it off of. You know what I mean? Like looking at the Tom Brady deal, like if you say, like I say Tom Brady's the best because of the championships.
Well, in the NFL, absolutely.
Yeah, in the NFL. So if you're basing it off of that same criteria, yeah, Ron's the best because he has the most yards.
I mean, when you talk a bruiser, I mean, he's every running back you want.
And you put him in this era, with like targeting and all this and that. Like, I mean, he'd be running fuckers over. Like, and look at the size of the guy. Like, look at a safety in the corner today compared to what, like, it's rare to get like a Jason Doran type of, and we talk about Doran all the time on the show. Like, I remember when I first introduced my kids to him, like I said, this is Jason Doran. He used to put people to sleep on the field.
Yeah.
Like, we used to laugh when people were snoring in a Big Ten game. So,
what an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, based off of that, based off of yards, I mean, if you want to base off the 40, no. But
but what does that mean? I mean, 40-yard dash. You see your best running backs. Mark Ingram was a 4.5 40.
Exactly, yeah.
He's probably 225 pounds, athletic. You look at Josh Jacobs, in the Packer game. I mean, wow, he's got a burst. He's athletic. He can do the spin moves. Like, to me, he's a mini Ron Dane. A little more explosive, but it's amazing how that position has changed.
All right, welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills, sponsored by Cabin Coffee Altoona and Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire. First off, we got to address our legal department wanted me to read this message that Joe is on an involuntary leave of absence due to comments he made on the last show. We are diligently working with HR to have him return to the show as soon as possible. So with that being said, last night, the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State beat Boise State as we said they were going to. It was a solid win by Penn State. Now, the negative I feel, like we said from the start, I feel giving Boise a bye just gives Penn State the run right to, the quarterfinals now. Yeah. So the winner of Georgia Notre Dame, like now the argument is Penn State an easy game after Georgia Notre Dame to make it to the national championship?
Penn State played, Big Ten football. They were able to run the ball. Boise State got, within 3, 17-14. But I think that's when the linemen stepped in with Penn State. In the fourth quarter, that Franklin run, 54-yard run, that was the game set check mark right there. I mean, Penn State, as Big Ten football, as they ran the ball.
They did. And like any bowl game, I feel, first off, let me rewind for a second, and I'm not going to re-edit this. I apologize. I'm reintroducing Kevin Stanky here. Joe's high school teammate and our friend throughout the years is stepping in while Joe's on this involuntary leave. So back to the Penn State game. Yeah, there was a lot of things, but looking at college players, everybody, and we know, everybody gets a little nervous before games.
Yeah.
I almost felt like at the beginning of that game, with the fumbles, turnovers, it was that big stage. And this is where I go a little bit back to, compared to their season that they played, this was a huge game, and I felt like that they were more nervous than the Penn State team was going into the game. And it showed early on. They were competitive, and I'll give it, they were more competitive than I thought they were going to be. Granted, the score at the end, we talked about the point spread. Penn State covered the point spread. But Boise, they did perform and prove to be a good team. One of the things that did bother me was there was a lot of talk about the college rushing record with Genty and comparing him to Barry Sanders. One, there's the argument that Genty would have the potential to have more games than Barry Sanders. Two, and Joe and I have talked about this a lot on the show, that the NCAA, for whatever messed up reason, does not count bowl games, I think, prior to 2000 or 2001. So Barry Sanders would have had, I think, 2 or 3 bowl games added on. So it's just a cluster and typical NCAA shit that they do. But, yeah, so Penn State's going to the quarterfinals. We're not going to be addressing these games because they're going on tonight, the night that we're going to be airing the show. But Penn State will be in the quarterfinals, and it'll be interesting to see who takes on Penn State, Georgia, or Notre Dame, and watching the rest of the playoffs play out.
I think the other thing with Boise State is your two missed field goals. I mean,
yes,
I think you're going to see in the playoffs, both college football and NFL, it's a game of inches. And, what was the Al Pacino movie where he gives a famous speech, right?
It's funny you said that. Joe talks about it all the time, the game of inches.
Yeah.
You got to fight and claw for that inch. And like you said, with the field goals, leaving points out there.
Yep.
I mean, that's 6 points at crucial points of the game where it changes the way your strategy is for the game.
I mean, Penn State, their tight end, Tyler Warren, I mean, he makes that jump and catch a couple inches shorter, he doesn't make it, right?
Exactly.
The running back was Singleton.
Yes.
That made us a big 54-yard run. So, you're going to see it more as the competition and the playoffs continue in college football and the NFL. There's just tight windows now. These are all athletes that you're seeing out on the field.
Yes. And we're going to touch on what the outlook of college is going to look like, especially we say every single show with this money. And going into the Badgers for a second, just a couple things. One, a lot of fans were devastated with the Badgers breaking a 22-year bowl streak. We found out that Fickle actually told the Big Ten prior to Marshall backing out of the bowl game that Wisconsin was not going to partake in a bowl game, even if they were asked, just due to the portal. After the game, so many players putting their name in the portal, it wasn't even a question. So that was number one. But bottom line, they didn't make the bowl game, and Wisconsin's got a lot of rebuilding to do, and they're dealing with just what I see from the outside as a mess right there. So we have one of the players, Kamoy Latu, that's giving shots to the Badgers for Xavier Lucas, giving shots to the Badgers for basically saying they're holding him hostage, or making his tweet seem like they're holding him hostage. And what I've read is that Wisconsin put him in the portal. The NCAA lapsed on their side of it. But in addition to that, because he wasn't technically in the portal, the recruiting of him, I believe by Miami, is considered illegal because he wasn't in the portal. So just like everything we say, it's a mess in college right now. We have the Badgers, the Badgers safety, Kamoy Latu, that also took a dig at the Badgers by thanking Paul Christ and Jim Leonard's team for his experience there, and left out Fickle and his staff. So it's just messy. And Badger fans are saying, how do we fix it? And we talked about it a little before the show. It comes down to money. Who's gonna give the money? And right now, there is, in my eyes, there's no answer. The way the system is, and with no rules in the system, other than whoever has the most money has the best opportunity. Now, money doesn't, me and you both know, money doesn't build you culture and confidence in one another, but money will buy you talent. Then it comes down to the coaches. Can you coach that talent? Basically, we're having college coaches that for 100 years developed players and developed teams. Now you're basically saying you were a college coach. Now, a snap of fingers, you're an NFL coach coaching millionaires. Now that have attitudes, they're driving Rolls Royces, that have a couple $100,000 in jewelry on their necks, and you got to coach that attitude as opposed to develop a guy and develop a team into a great team.
Well, I mean, firsthand. I mean, you played at Wisconsin. I mean, that was when I think Wisconsin football, I think of linemen. Developing the 6'7", 6'6", 6'5" hogs that you guys had. Just every year, it seems like there's 2 or 3 linemen from Wisconsin getting drafted. And I think as a recruit, mark me if I'm wrong here, or correct me if I'm wrong, you go to Wisconsin because you know that if you play, you have a chance to go into the league. But what you're saying now is teams can now poach, and they're doing it. You're seeing it with they're illegally contacting players in the season. I know you're going to touch on the quarterback for Texas. $6 million for him to not enter the NFL draft and go to a team. And you're seeing it with obviously the bowl game, with the Badgers turning down a bowl game because players are already entering the portal. It's the wild, wild west. Yeah.
And think about it. So roughly 20 years ago, the NFL put the rookie salary cap in the NFL. And I believe it was the year before we came out, I think it was Sam Bradford, got like $54 million to put his name on the contract in his signing bonus. Not his contract, just the bonus was 54. Now it's more relative, a smaller contract, still millions, but smaller contract. A guy like Evers, this is one report of a $6 million potential payout. And like Joe and I say, just like the Bryce Underwood at Michigan with the $12 million for 3 years, that's one deal. This guy could be getting 20 deals. So an Evers could potentially make more this 1 year of college than he might his whole rookie contract in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And as me and you both know, it only takes one play to end that career. Take that money while it's out there. And with the lack of rules, like we keep saying, it's a shit show. I mean, I remember talking to coaches that, we used to have the blackout windows when you couldn't talk to players. When the reason all these coaches are on social media, not so much today because athletes are on social media today, but the reason coaches were on social media 10 years ago was when that blackout window happened, the NCAA had no way to regulate social media.
Yep.
So if they say you contacted a player illegally, they'll get your phone records from the school. There's nothing about social media.
Exactly.
That's why coaches were always DMing players, hitting them up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And now it's, like I said, it's just, how's a player not going to listen to somebody that says, in Texas, they're playing in a game and this kid's being offered $6 million for next year. It's insane.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
But along the lines of money, one of the articles I read talking about a 2026 4-star Naeem Burrows, that Wisconsin's in the mix in the top 6 teams. And basically I just said, it's going to come down to who's going to pay this kid the most. This kid's a year, he's probably going to make his decision in the next 6 months, say, but it's who's paying him the most. Yeah, Wisconsin's one of the 6 schools, but like you said, it's not the way it used to be where you grew up in the state of Wisconsin, you want to go to Wisconsin, or I grew up in Pennsylvania and you want to play for your state school, or you want to go to a school because of a connection or a relative, or because they breed O-linemen or running backs or linebackers. It's money talks. And players are going where the money. How do you not go? Like Joe and I had this conversation. Joe's like, and I think he said the show you were on, he didn't consider any other school. He was only going to Wisconsin. I go, yeah, Joe, but I go, look at the way we grew up. If somebody was going to give you the amount of money that the way we grew up, you're paying all your parents' bills, you're paying their house off, you're going where the money is.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that just, and coaches talking about, our coaches coached with relationships. That's why guys stayed with the program. That's why guys came to that program, because of relationships. And I don't think there's any relationship that compares to money today, that you could form that quick and hold that long against a larger dollar amount.
Joe's the perfect example. I mean, Iowa, Notre Dame, he had big schools after him.
Yeah.
Reebok All-American, in today's dollars, that's probably $1 million payday.
Easily.
But, Joe's the perfect example. When you talk a lineman, Fury, guy that is going to get in the trenches, that's the guy right there. And unfortunately, his career was cut short due to a freak accident in practice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Guy pulling the wrong way and takes out your knee. And, I go back to, in baseball, the Brewers, Pat Murphy is the manager, and they just traded their closer, Devin Williams, and they got this hot prospect named Durbin. And this guy is an athlete, like Arizona Fall League. I think he was like 28 out of 30 stolen bases. But Pat Murphy goes, they're asking where they're going to put him. And he just said, when you go to a furniture store, he likes to look at the furniture. He likes to sit on it. He likes to, test it out and see how it feels. I think a lot of these high school coaches and, not high school coaches for these top recruits. I mean, you have these athletes, but in a game of inches, you have to make a decision at a quarterback. There's a tight window.
Yeah.
And just because you run a 4.3 40 running doesn't mean you can, intelligently pick which, second or third or even fourth read that receiver is open. I mean, you're gambling And this Michigan quarterback, I hope that he's great.
Yeah.
But if I was an administrator for college, I'd be really scared where I'm putting my money.
It is. It's great. To your point, and we talked about this, schools are hiring GMs now. And that's essentially the role of the GM is you got to get somebody. And if you want somebody good, the way, and we keep saying there's lack of rules, but the way the rules are, you got to pay the person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and it's stupid the amount of money. Colleges are taking a higher risk financially than NFL teams are financially on quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
An NFL team's not paying a rookie quarterback $12 million. Like, you're not getting a rookie contract for $12 million right now today in the NFL, and in college you are. And as we keep saying, that's one deal. Imagine if this kid does perform the way everybody thinks he is going to. Imagine what he's going to get that fourth year.
Well, then you're going to put him in
if nothing changes.
Yeah, then he's a Cam Newton. He's these mobile quarterbacks. Tim Tebow. He's a game changer. And let's face it, every team brings in 4 or 5 recruits, quarterbacks. Let's just use quarterbacks. All 5 quarterbacks are all state. They are the best of that state, and they come to a team, and some of them never even get a shot.
Yeah.
They get buried. A starting quarterback gets a 3-year run, and you're the second, third string quarterback.
See, what I'm interested about that we're not, and as we say, there's no transparency. But what I'm interested in, so Michigan, you're paying Bryce Underwood $12 million over 3 years in this one deal that we know about. You got to have 3 to 4 other at the start of the season. You're going to have 3 to 4 other quarterbacks on the roster. Now it's a Michigan. You're going to have good backups. How much are those guys getting paid? Now, the way college football is today, the number 2, 3, and 4, they're going to get an offer somewhere else.
Yeah.
That the NCAA doesn't have a rule that has to be contracts that you have to abide by. This player is going to go, say the number 2 goes, oh, I didn't beat out Bryce Underwood. I thought I had a chance. I thought I was going to, but I didn't. Penn State's offering me a starting quarterback job, and they're offering me $3.5 million. Number 1, is he allowed to go?
Yeah.
Number 2, does he have a contract? Does he give up the money at Michigan to sign a new contract at Penn State? It blows my mind. With all the transparency in the world today, on the internet today, we know nothing.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it either. Like, I had a couple buddies call me up and be like, my consigliere in Virginia goes, you're one of the few guys talking about this right now. The woke sports mainstream media, they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
And 1, I think it's because nobody knows. 2, nobody wants to talk about it. It's just like hands off with everybody. But at some point, we keep saying something has to change.
Well, we haven't seen any, I guess, to your point, we haven't seen any legal battles between the athlete and the university, or the athlete and the NIL.
But is that what's going to happen? The athlete's not going to file any legal action. It's almost like the universities are going to have to come together, almost unionize as a university, and just say, you guys are all employees. Here are our employee contracts. And the universities have to agree. But we talked about this before the show, is that I've said from the beginning of NIL, you have to have a salary cap. But we've also admitted, just say, so we talked about on last show, Ohio State, it's everywhere on the internet and every newspaper that they paid $20 million for this year's roster.
Yeah.
I'm saying if they're saying that, they probably paid $40 million, $50 million, $60 million. That's probably what they're actually paying. So let's say you put a salary cap in at $7.5 million. 1, the top 20 teams are going to be pissed that they can't spend more money. The bottom 110 teams are going to be pissed because $7.5 million is a fortune.
Oh.
And the only thing I could come up with is, you draw a line, whether that's at the top 30 teams, 40, 50 teams, whatever it is. Those guys have a salary cap. They're just they're what Joe calls semi-pro. Then you have the rest of Division I football, which is traditional. I mean, but then are those guys allowed to pay? It's a mess, but rules have to come in at some point.
Well, I think you go way back to Southern Methodist. They got the lifetime ban of NCAA because they're paying players, but now they're back in the window here as the last couple of years, and of course they're just in the playoffs here. So You have colleges with money. You have boosters with money that want their organizations, or they're, for example, Oregon with Phil Knight. He's 70 years? I think 70 years old, and he wants a national championship.
Yeah,
and it was a blank checkbook.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know. It's just it's not. And I know we're getting old. We talk about that all the time. And I feel old saying this. It's not the game that we played. It's not the sport that we played. And I mean, I don't even see, like I said last show, that there's no stop signs on this road. I don't even see a yield sign in the distance. Yeah. And it's one of those, like, I laugh. I keep saying, like, I have a son in high school right now, and I go, he's 3 years away from college. I go, it can't be the same. It's got to change before then. But if it doesn't, is there going to be an NFL? I mean, the rate we are ramping up in college, and the way, I mean, Oregon went from you can't play players whenever NIL started 4 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, to now that what's documented is they're at $1 billion in their collective. What's it going to be in 2 years or 4 years or 8 years? I mean, are schools going to have a $10 billion collective? You know what I mean? Like,
but where's the money coming from?
Well, that's the whole other thing.
What I mean?
Where's it coming from? Is it like when we talked about this too? Is the money legit? Like, it's all all this money is just liquid money floating around with no transparency whatsoever. I don't know.
You would think the NCAA should have a pool and they should distribute it out between teams. If you're going to do a salary cap like minor league baseball, right now, you were Big Ten. I'm, obviously played in a max, conference. I would have to say, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a max school might have, let's say, a budget of $3 million for the year. And to go play a Big Ten team and get $1.2 million, that's quite a bit.
Absolutely correct. But the way, and I agree with that 100%, but the way it is now, say Bowling Green had a graduate that owns a company and became a billionaire, that guy might just donate $20 million just for the 2025 season and be like, here's $20 million. I want to win the conference. I want to make the playoffs, and I want to see what we could do. The way it's set up right now, that's allowed. Yeah. So is it going to come down to the school that has the most CEOs or the school that graduates the most people that turn into billionaires? Is that who's going to have the best team? Like, I don't know. I feel like a broken record, but I can't stop saying I can't believe there's still no rules. And there's not even talk about rules. Like, you know how with sports you hear like, oh, they're debating adding this or putting this rule in place. Like, there's not even a mention of a salary cap or a contract, or there's no mention of anything.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Well, I mean, the main priority of going to college is academics, right? And getting that degree. I think college basketball changed the one and dones. Those guys aren't going to class.
Well, I said it last show, and the more I thought about it, I was like, how much kickback am I going to get from that? The more I thought about it in the last week, I go, I'm adamant. Until rules come into place, which we don't have any rules on the horizon, I think academics is going to be done with college sports. With the college sports that are in that top tier that say we're going to have a cap or we're going to keep paying players, why are we sending these kids to school? It's a job, and it's about money. Like right now, college football has nothing to do with school. It's about you're telling millionaires you got to go to a clap for credit to get an A to keep your average up. Like, I don't think it's right, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, college football right now, when you talk about, viewership, I'm sure it's top number one, right? Yeah. Everybody, you got 100,000+ people going to games at some of these conferences. You have, ESPN. You have games on from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. out on the West Coast. So people are watching.
Yeah.
But you also have a lot of other college sports that probably aren't making money. Right?
Well, and that's the tough thing too, is, we've mentioned in the past, you got Title IX. How is this money going to affect Title IX? How is this money going to affect other sports? I mean, I'm even to the point where saying that top echelon that we talk about, take the scholarships away. Take that scholarship money. Divide that up with the other sports. Any money that comes into the university, that only goes to the other sports.
Yeah. I mean,
And then that upper echelon, it's treated like the NFL. Instead of owners, you have donors.
well,
And it's just the money comes in, just goes to football. Because right now the money coming in is not going to any of the other sports. That money going to the collective at Wisconsin is going to the Badger football team. And that's it.
but that's Wisconsin. I mean, look at if you're talking.
Well, I'm saying
Wisconsin,
that's every school. Every school's collective is just going to the football team or basketball team or wherever the money's directed. Right now, today with NIL and collective, I mean, I know they're two set. NIL, you're paying the player directly. The collective is like if Bill Ferrario gives $100 to Wisconsin, it's going to the football team, to the Wisconsin collective.
right? And I would think every school has different funds, right?
Correct.
But like Wisconsin, I think the women's volleyball team. I mean, man, they got sold out, arena every time they play. They're on Big Ten Network. They're on ESPN. I mean, they have built a powerhouse.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, too, is like even they have NIL deals. Yep. And like this is one of the funny things Joe and I talk about. Now, granted, there's different calibers. And, we've gotten into the past in the whole different pay with men and women. It comes down to viewers and interest and who wants to see what. But you could go on the internet right now on the Badger Collective, go to volleyball. You could pay $20, $50 and have a volleyball player send out a tweet mentioning whatever you want or whatever the dollar amount is for whatever the transaction is. It's just there's more money going in for football right now.
Right.
Now, granted, there's some schools where there's more money for – I'm sure at North Carolina, at Duke, at Kentucky, there's more money going for basketball than football. But that money that goes in there is directed to that sport. Cut them off from everything else. And, you almost got to treat it like at Wisconsin, football's a business. The rest of school is education and school.
Oh, let's face it. There's a lot of business being done at pregame football.
Absolutely.
You have your little parties, your little get-togethers, a lot of business, a lot of corporate people setting the table for those Monday through Friday meetings. And what a great write-off, right, for some of these businesses.
Yep. Well, with that being said, let's move along. We're going to touch on the Packers here. Packers had a tough game against the Vikings. I know a lot came up on the internet going back to, and Joe and I brought this up once before, is the NFL rigged? Did you see the extra point or the field goal?
Yeah, I mean, that offsides, that was a turning point when we talk about inches, right? I mean, boy, when you looked at the reviews, it sure didn't look like it's offsides. And, you could see LaFleur on the sideline just getting pissed.
Correct. Now here's one of my things. Well, a couple things. One, for the fans, me and you both know, any game doesn't come down to one play.
Yep.
All these fans, that one play, there's other plays that you could have won that game. Oh. And then on the NFL side of it, how are we a multi-billion-dollar industry and we have probably a couple hundred cameras inside a stadium and still even like with the goal line, we don't know if the ball crossed the goal line. And we're a multi-billion-dollar industry with hundreds of cameras.
Yeah.
Like, how do we not? So, like, to me, that picture, yes, it clearly looks like he's offsides. But then I started thinking, where does the long snapper have the ball right before he snaps? Because it almost looked like his long snapper's head was in front of the ball.
Yeah.
Was the picture taken before that right guard settled into his stance? There was a bunch of different questions I had. But it just comes down to you can't win or lose a game on one play.
When you talk, we were all, that 1 yard neutral zone, right? Let's just face it. Every down, I think you could call offsides. Those DNs they're right on the inch line of being offsides. A lot of times I think they are, and I think the NFL just lets them go with it. But yeah, when you talk that missed field goal right at the very beginning, the Packers, I liked their team defense. I thought they were playing with passion. You get that Josh Jacobs fumble. That's you're driving down the field, running the ball at will on the Vikings, and at the 35-yard line, you fumble it,
which was rare for him to. It just wasn't typical Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
and our rush defense. And that's the positive for the Packers right now. Our rush defense was lights out.
Yeah,
now the rest of the game, pass defense obviously giving up some.
But when you look at those plays. I thought Tom Brady on next gen stats. They broke it down a couple times. That window, that post 25 yards out. There's, a couple inches off to the left, and it's intercepted. Our Packer players are there.
Yes,
And, that touchdown to, what was the third string receiver for the Vikings?
Oh, you're kidding.
Nyland that was just a great play. You look at the outside linebacker blitzed, and if he had just 0.2 of a second more, he would have had him sacked.
Yeah.
And that play doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's how close the NFL is.
Absolutely. Now the interesting thing is the playoff picture. So we got the Lions and Vikings playing in Week 18. Whoever wins that game is going to be number 1 in the NFC. They're going to win the NFC, and they're going to have a first-round bye. Whoever loses the game is going to be the number 5 seed in the NFC, despite 14 wins.
Yeah.
And then the Packers are either going to be the number 6 or number 7 seed in the NFC. And the shitty thing for the Packers is the ramifications, if they're the number 7 seed, is they're guaranteed to go on the road to face the Eagles in the wild card round. And that's going to be a tough game, let alone a tough game in Philly. Having played in Philly and grew up in Pennsylvania, just a tough stadium, tough fans, and you're playing a really good Eagles team. And Saquon Barkley, for being he's one of those rare running backs. I know he's had injuries, but today running backs just don't last as long as they used to. And because of that, they're not treated like gold like they used to when we were coming out. When we were coming out, running backs were taken off the board early and often, and now they're not because they know their life expectancy isn't that long in the sport. But Saquon,
yeah,
he's playing like a rookie out there, like a rookie All-American.
What a special year for him.
Especially what?
What a special year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Coming back from 2 knee injuries?
Yeah.
And then being a free agent with this free agent class of running backs. Derrick Henry going to the Ravens, Barkley going to the Eagles, and then Josh Jacobs, going to the Packers. Like, all 3 running backs picked right. And these teams are all in the hunt for a Super Bowl championship because of the run game. But you also have to go as a lineman. Those linemen on the Ravens, the Eagles, and the Packers, these teams know what they're drafting and developing.
Yeah.
These linemen are the heart and soul.
And not only developing, and this is what college is getting away from. These NFL teams, there's consistency. The teams are keeping the line together, and that's my thing where I know we keep saying money talks. You couldn't pay me enough to try and coach college. I just don't know how you do it with that much talent. But like me and you both know, with an offensive line, you need consistency. Joe and I say, in 97, we were the least experienced O-line probably in all of college football. By 99, we were the most experienced line in all of college football. And
so when you say experience, help me
games
out.
Started playing side by side,
yes,
knowing what the guy next to you is doing without saying it.
Exactly.
You don't have to talk. I noticed he looked over at the wheel. I know what he's going to do. It's just all of that. Where today, like we say in college with the transfer portal, you essentially have a guy coming in maybe a month or 2 before the season, and boom, he's out the door 4 months later to another team, then to another team, then to another team. It's great. Miami Hurricanes. I saw a picture of their tight end hugging a coach. He just finished his 9th year in college football. Are you kidding me? And now we talked about the last show with JUCO. Now you could essentially get 7 years in college without any injuries or anything. Just having 2 years in JUCO, junior college, having your redshirt year, and then 4 years in college.
Could you imagine? I couldn't imagine 9 years.
Imagine getting paid too all those years. JUCO players are going to start getting paid. Like we mentioned last time, high school players. I think half the country legally allows high school players to get paid through NIL. Don't tell me, like we talked about Phil Knight, don't tell me Phil Knight or the collective or whoever the handler, let's say, isn't going to a high school kid. Hey, you're going into your junior year. We saw what you did last year. You made it to the state championship. You got a hell of an arm. We're going to give you $100,000 a year. Give it to your parents or whatever, pay your mortgage, do this and that. But come commitment day, you're committing to Oregon. Come signing day, you're signing with Oregon. And in the contract, or you owe us all this money.
Right.
Like, they're going to start locking kids down, once again, because there's no rules. Maybe the NCAA needs to tune into the show. Like, we're giving them ideas.
Maybe you should be running for board, the NCAA, because...
I'm thinking about just overthrowing them. Just coming up with a new company and just being like, come with us. Yep. Well, here's the rules. Here's our business plan.
So you're saying maybe grabbing the top 50 teams and
I don't, without hearing anybody else have an idea, I think you got to do something like that. Because to your point, you need rules. We live in a society with rules. You need rules, number one. Number two, to try and have some sort of fairness, because it is a sport and sports need to be not equal. That's a little bit too strong of a word, but fair. Rules that are fair, just like the NFL. There's a salary cap. There's teams that are great and there's teams that suck, but they all play within the realm of those rules. College has nothing right now.
I mean, NIL, correct me if I'm wrong, you can leave a college after 1 year, NIL, and can you do it again? Because they haven't.
So right now there's no rules. So you could go in and out of that. That's another rule that I feel strongly about, is throughout your college career, you should only be able to enter the portal one time. Because here's the deal. Like, go back, compare it to us. If we entered the portal, we got punished and had to sit out a year for entering the portal. Oh, you want to transfer school? We'll let you transfer, but we're going to punish you by making you sit out a year. These kids get to go, oh, I didn't start. I want to go somewhere else. Oh, I don't like that coach. He's not throwing me the ball enough. I want to go somewhere else. They get to just keep doing it. And no one's suggesting, maybe we should pump the brakes on this. Maybe we should.
But what do you do? Let's say, give you an example. These college coaches are jumping universities every year.
Well, I'm going to cut you off really quick. I say, if you're going to say it to the kids, you have to say it to the coaches. Because we said the coaches' contracts, all that is how much money the university is paying them. You could sign a coach to a 20-year contract, they can leave day two.
Exactly.
As long as somebody buys them out. So if you're going to do contracts for the players and have everybody agree upon it, you need to let the coaches know and let the players know, hey, if this coach signed a 10-year deal, he's like, whatever it has to say, he's not allowed to do anything in sports, announce, NFL, another team, he can't do anything if he leaves this contract.
Yeah.
And just hold them accountable.
You would think so, but
I mean, it sounds simple. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's not, but to not have any rules. Like, let's start 2025 with one rule. Okay, starting in 2025, if you enter the portal, you are never allowed to do it again.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Like, just institute one rule, or say...
Well, you also have when you graduate, you can transfer. That's how Badgers got Russell Wilson.
Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, that's a helpful
But that goes
rule.
back to, our athletes at the upper 50 schools they're getting paid, are they ever going to graduate?
Wow.
I know I wouldn't graduate if I was making millions.
Well, I mean, what's really hurting is if you're hired to win, which these coaches are a lot of pressure from the boosters to win. Are you going to redshirt an athlete? Are you going to take a high school kid?
No, I don't think you are, because I don't think that kid's going to stay. Once again, that's a different program where that's what we were used to, where there was development. Without development, you redshirt a kid, that kid's jumping in the portal. Unless
you have an NIL deal that would pay the linemen, right? Here's your collective for just offensive linemen. All these athletes are nothing unless you have a great offensive line or D-line.
And I think that's a little bit what, starting in, I think it's July 1 of 2025, schools are allowed to pay the team up to $20 million.
Yep.
So how that gets divided out. But even that, who's making those decisions? Who are you going to piss off? And, I look back at Wisconsin. I loved every player on our team, but everybody had different personalities, different attitudes. We had two phenomenal cornerbacks, Mike Eccles, Jamar Fletcher.
Yeah.
I know Jamar's going to get more money.
Right.
How's Eccles going to feel about that? I don't know. It's a can of worms that I sit down and I laugh that I can't believe we got, I want to figure out the day this started, what exact year it was for the next show, and be the day before that, there were all these rules. And it was basically around the virus time, because the virus is what allowed NIL, all that. So it was probably around 2020. So it's probably about 4.5, 5 years ago. But yeah, before that, all these rules. If you got $5 an hour bagging groceries, boom, you're out of school. You're
Do you
cut.
remember? I remember even at at the beginning of the year, we had to list what our vehicle was, make, model. So some of the guys, their parents got them a vehicle because they got a scholarship, and but yeah, it was different rules.
Yes.
I mean, we had to report our income.
Yeah.
There was a lot of differences compared to now, and
Absolutely.
now social media. I think you hit on how coaches can message players on social media, but look at those NIL or the social media darlings, Olivia Dunn, and all this money that they're making on Twitter and TikTok.
So even there, once again, like you say, amateur that you're not supposed to work. These people might be making like an Olivia Dunn's probably making millions just off of her personal social media.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Like something like that. That if it's available, you do it, use it. But it's just mind blowing where we have gotten from. We knew when you said college athlete just 10 years ago, we knew everything that defined you're an amateur, you're not making money. Maybe if you come from a family of money, typically you see a lot of quarterbacks typically come from families of money where they have more training, stuff like that. They might be driving the nice vehicle on campus, but everybody else is scrounging. Now it's...
when I look back, quite honestly, if you asked me to name right now 20 college athletes, I would have a hard time doing that. Now, from the 90s, I can tell you Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, all these players that stayed 4 and 5 years. They built a name for themselves.
They had a legacy.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. These players now, it's just like a factory at LSU. Think of all the amazing players.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. When you talk Alabama, like Josh Jacobs was there. Derrick Henry was at Alabama. It's just a factory of NFL players. Yep. Wisconsin. I mean, there's...
Kevin, I'm not even from Wisconsin. I didn't even get out here until I was 17, 18 years old. There was moments where I felt like I grew up here, where I knew the 94 team, the players, the stats, the this and that, just from hearing everything about it. Today, we have a freaking show that we talk about the Badgers, and there's times I have to look up, like, who's the starting O-line? Like, every week, Joe and I are like, who's starting on the O-line? Like, we don't know.
Exactly.
5-6 years ago, I knew, like, that's Gabe Cabrini. He's going into his fourth year. It's so-and-so. Like, now it's, I don't know. It's just a swinging door.
And I feel bad for the athletes because when they want to go back to their colleges, at least you can go back to Wisconsin and hang out with the guys like it's a brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for me. I can go to Bowling Green. Or, for example, I have friends that went to Northern Illinois. Dan Stankowski. It's great seeing them. It's like a brotherhood of all athletes. And if they're just jumping, there's no brotherhood.
Exactly. Where do you go for a reunion? Think about the guy from Miami. Does he have like 6 choices?
Right.
Like, where? Maybe I'll go down to Miami for this game. I can go over here to my second team I played for. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
All right, but getting close to the end here, we have Eric Dickerson and Saquon Barkley. Saquon's coming up on Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record, and Eric Dickerson is not happy about it. I sort of wanted to see what our thoughts were. And he's blatantly coming out there saying he does not want the record to be broken. I could understand there's pride in what you did. At the same time, too, me personally, I'm the type of guy that if I was an Eric Dickerson, I'm like, hey, it's another running back. He's a good, very good running back, arguably one of the best. And if it's going to be broken, I want it broken by him. I looked at it where we set a record at Wisconsin. We were the first Big Ten team to win back-to-back Rose Bowls. And in around 2010, Wisconsin went to 3 back-to-back Rose Bowls. Regretfully enough, they lost 3 in a row. I would have loved, if I could snap my fingers, have them win 3 in a row and destroy our record because of how much I care about our program. I want to see the school, the kids, the university succeed in that fact. And I mean, at the same time, too, you always have your record. It just got beat. So I don't know. What's your take on it? What do you think about Dickerson?
Well, I think Eric Dickerson, first is when his record is 16 games.
True.
I think you have to have an asterisk no matter what. If somebody can truly break his record, they have to do it in 16 games. This extra, 17, season that they have right now. The NFL, I would say this is, compared to Eric Dickerson's era in the late 80s, mid 80s, I mean, athletes now are a lot faster.
Yeah.
They're a lot stronger. And it's a more physical game now.
Yeah.
Now, granted, when you say physicality, those guys in the 80s, I mean, they were a little bit slower, but they might have been, they might have a little concrete in their, their elbow pads.
The way they hit you, what they do in the pile, all that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Bowling Green's got a guy, Phil Villapiano, played for the Raiders, and he's right on the cusp of getting into the Hall of Fame. In fact, the famous Pittsburgh Steelers tip, that ended up getting them to the playoffs. Phil Villapiano was a part of that. And but you want to talk about a character, you need to listen to some of his videos. I mean, I could listen to him all day long. But that was a different football generation.
It was a different.
They're smoking cigarettes, drinking beer on the sidelines
at halftime for crying out loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But as far as Eric Dickerson, one of the greats. He's up there, and when you say top 10 running backs of all time, he's right there in the conversation. Gotcha. You got Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Eric Dickerson. I would say, Bo Jackson at a time was.
If he stayed healthy, who knows? Sky was the limit with him.
Yeah. Emmett Smith with that unbelievable, offensive line.
Barry Sanders with no offensive line.
Right.
I mean, growing up as a kid, I had the guy I looked up to, graduated from my high school, played for the Lions, so I became a Lions fan around middle school. And I always said, I just always would love to have seen both the careers if Emmett was at Detroit and Barry was with Dallas. That? I mean, who knows what would have happened.
Dane Newton, Larry Allen running behind there. There was times, I remember John Madden just talking about Emmett Smith wasn't touched for 5-6 yards before he had to make Barry Sanders was making moves in the backfield.
I remember some of the greatest highlights was, as a Lions fan growing up, you joke and say there's nobody out there blocking for him. There were times where Barry would run, say, 54 yards just to gain a yard and a half. Yeah. He's to the one sideline, to the other sideline, halfway back, and gets like a yard and a half in it.
But that niftiness that he had, his low center of gravity.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only player, who's the Devin Hester with the Bears?
Yes.
I mean, that guy could stop on a dime.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders had more explosion on his return game.
Yeah.
But Barry Sanders definitely, and Walter Payton, I would say was part of that elusive group.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, hey, before we wrap up, you said you had something you wanted to throw at me.
Yeah, I get. This is a guy question. So here's the dilemma, guys. It's New Year's, right? And we all know that the big Penn State Boise State game was going on, but the game was 6:30. So my dilemma was I had to take my high school crush on a date, and so I had to go to Wicked. I had to make that decision. Wicked started at 6:30, so. Of course, it's a 2 hours, 45-minute movie. It's a musical. I had to really think twice about it, but I went to the movie, and Ariana Grande is amazing. It was a musical. Cynthia Erivo is very impressive. It makes you, the movie is definitely a must-see for dates. But it goes to that question, Bill, sports or girlfriend? Sports or date?
I hear you. And so here's my thing too and I'm familiar with the datee, and I think you made the right choice because it wasn't a first date. There's some history there. I think you made the correct choice, especially that it'd be different if there was a family member or a friend playing in the game. But just as a sports fan, now where I would tell you should have stepped your game up a little is already as soon as you started telling that story, I'm like, well, I got an Apple Watch. I wear my watch on my left wrist. I would have connected my phone to the watch, sat on the left side of my date, been able to look at my watch every time that there was an update in the game. And I take it back to when my daughter did dance. Wisconsin basketball was, who were they playing? Kentucky, I think in either the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. And because my son, Chris, was so young, we took an iPad in there, kept it on mute. I had about 12 dads sitting behind me, and we're watching basketball at the dance recital. So, yeah, I think you made the right choice by going on the date. You still got to see the fourth quarter, I believe.
Got to see the fourth quarter.
But I would have stepped up technology, though, just so you could have got updates. because you're not pulling your phone out, lighting up the whole movie theater. But as long as you got a little update, score, turnover on your watch.
Well, I appreciate it because there was a bathroom break, so I got to
So you got to peek at
score.
there.
I got to see it, halftime score. So
But I think you made a smart move. I think you made the right decision.
well, I appreciate that.
But I understand the struggle.
Well, the great thing with technology is get to replay the game. And just like the Packer game, we had a hockey tournament in Green Bay and got to watch an NFL network get the rerun. So I get to watch the game at my pace.
Yeah.
So technology has come a long way since we went to, back in the 90s, you only had 2 channels of football, CBS and Fox. And now it's right on our phones.
Yes, it is. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap this show up. Joe, if you're out there and you're allowed to watch, hopefully you could get back here soon. But we'd like to thank our sponsors, Cabin Coffee Altoona and Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire. Thank you guys very much. Stay tuned for next week's episode. We're going to be hitting on the rest of the playoff picture in college and updates on the NFL, Packers, and what the playoff picture looks like moving forward. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.